Hey guys, how's everybody doing? Since Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny came out just last week, here's my own personal ranking of all 5 Indiana Jones movies. Very sorry that this video was late. I had a few things going on with the 4th of July and all that. I couldn't get it out by then. But hey, it's better late than never, right? But this is my own personal ranking of the Indiana Jones movies. This is not a definitive list. Please leave me your own ranking in the comments below. And with that being said, let's get on with it. And at number 5, to me, which is probably easily the worst of this franchise, is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of Crystal Skull. Now, I don't feel that this movie's horrible. I don't feel that it's one of the worst movies ever made. But if this would have been the last Indiana Jones movie, I would have been a little bit upset. Sure, he did get his happy ending with getting married with Karen Allen's character, which I think is a pretty nice ending. But this movie is just all over the place. Now, I do really like the action in this movie. I like this whole adventure that they go on. But what really holds it back is Shia LaBeouf. He is easily the worst part about this movie, and the comedy in this movie is just bad. And a lot of the continuity in this movie makes no sense either. It's not one of the worst movies ever made by any means. It's not one of the worst conclusions I've ever seen. But if this would have been the conclusion, I would have been pretty unhappy, which is why I'm glad we got the new movie. But I mean, this is never gonna be a movie I probably ever rewatch. Eh, I don't know. That's all I really have to say. And number 4 is the new kid on the block, which is Dial Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now, I actually really enjoyed this movie. I went into this movie with low expectations, with everyone saying when early screens like this is one of the worst of the franchise and all that, and people are just saying, "Hey, this movie's good enough for what it is." I was like, "Oh God, I'm scared," but I enjoyed this movie. I really had a damn good time with it. I went to the drive-in for this one, and I had a damn good time with it. I do agree that with the new characters, they're not very interesting to me. I felt like some of them were just annoying, and especially that the female antagonist, where I was like, "Oh God, what the hell?" And she betrays Indiana Jones, and all of a sudden they're just teammates. And then later in the movie, she's working with him and trying to save him. I'm like, really? You just tried to get him killed and tried to get him like caught, and now you want to work with him? No. But I really like the story. I really love the adventure they go on. I feel that Harrison Ford at his 80s, like sure, I do agree he doesn't give his best performance as the character, but for him being 80 years old, he does a damn good job for the age he's in. Like imagine being 80 years old and doing all the stuff that he's doing. Yeah, I didn't think so. It Harrison Ford coming back as the character was amazing. I was so glad to see one of my childhood heroes back on the big screen again. And if this is the last time we ever get to see the character, I'm happy. I am happy that with the conclusion that we got of this character. And if we ever get a remake by for some dumb reason, they better not, because this is where I feel that the character should just end. Number 3 is going to be Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. To me, this is where the franchise should have ended. This would have been a great finale, but no, money. I really enjoyed this movie. Really, what holds it back from being like number 2 material for me is the comedy in this movie, which is like, mm, there's parts in this movie that got a good chuckle out of me, or a laugh while I was like sitting there like, dude, none of this is funny. I'm not laughing. But what really saves this movie is Sean Connery. He is amazing in this movie. He's easily the highlight of this movie. Sean Connery and Harrison Ford have great chemistry. They're a great duo throughout this entire movie. I really love those two together in this movie. They're a lot of fun. They have good chemistry. They have some pretty funny moments here and there. I really like how the Nazis are kind of like the big bad villain, and I really like the effects in this movie that they pulled off for the time and all that. And like that whole opening segment for this movie where it kind of shows a little bit of Indiana Jones when he was a kid, which it shows off too much for my liking, but it doesn't show off too much. But yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. I see why some people say it's their number 2 or their number 1. But for me personally, I would rather watch the 2 above it, but It's still a great movie. I would rewatch this movie constantly, but really what holds it back is just the comedy. Other than that, this movie would be perfect. Now, I'm just gonna say this now, where my number one and number two always flip flop. Now, one day, if they made a new Indiana Jones movie and I updated this ranking, maybe these two would flip flop. But as of right now, my number two is gonna be Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. There's nothing about this movie I hate. This is a flawless movie. This is one of the best movies ever made. This is one of my favorite movies ever made. There's nothing wrong with this movie. I love every single inch of this movie. There's not one scene, not one moment, not one thing about this movie that I hate. Nothing holds this back for me. There's nothing I can say like, oh, this is a reason why it's at number two. There's no reason why it's at number two. Just my number one is a movie that I absolutely love. But this movie I absolutely love. There's nothing wrong with it. Probably the most one of if not the most iconic movie I've ever seen. It has some of the most reference movie clips in history. I adore this movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. But hey, number two out of five, it's not bad. It gets the silver medal. I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies. I can I could sit here all day blabbing how much I love this movie, but it's coming in at number two for me. In at number one is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies. This has always been my favorite Indiana Jones movie. This is the one that I grew up watching the most. A lot of people say that they don't like this movie because of its darker tone, which I get it. But for someone who's a horror fan and loves horror movies, the darker tone doesn't get to me. Maybe if I didn't watch horror movies or wasn't as a big fan of horror, maybe the darker tone would get to me and I would say, no, Raiders of the Lost Ark is better film for me. I adore this movie. Really, the only thing I don't like about this movie is Willy. She is one of the most obnoxious characters in film history. That's all I gotta say. And especially Short Round, who's a nice antagonist in this movie. They teased me that he was in Dial of Destiny, but they basically did this to me. I've heard news that he was in the new movie, and I was like, finally, we're gonna see Short Round again, but he wasn't in the movie. Sorry, spoilers. It was really upsetting. I love Short Round. He's one of my favorite characters. He's probably my second favorite character of the Indiana Jones franchise. I love Short Round. I love the story of this movie. I love more just I love this movie. There's nothing about this movie I basically hate except for Willy. Sure, in Raiders of the Lost Ark may be perfect. This movie is close to being perfect, but was the one that I rewatched the most as a kid. It's the movie I rewatched the most as a Indiana Jones fan. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I adore this movie. It's a movie I rewatch constantly. There's nothing else to be said. I love Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That's all I gotta know. And if you want to hunt me down for saying that Temple of Doom is the best Indiana Jones movie, bring it. That is my own personal ranking of the Indiana Jones movies. Please do not send me death threats about saying Temple of Doom is better than Raiders of the Lost Ark. But instead of doing that, how about you leave me your own ranking in the comments below instead of sending death threats to me and my mother. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and if you like this video, like it, and if you love it, subscribe and hit the bell notifications for my next, so you will get notified for my latest videos. But until my next video, take care.